This is not a whip you kind of session. This is a learning process. Okay, we're going to be having some fun together. I want your input. I want you to speak up. I want you, if you have any questions, to ask questions, because we're going to learn a little bit more about how to do this process a little bit better. Okay. The reason why we're going to do that is that because there has been some problems, and with every production run there are always some problems. Printing is a difficult business, but more than that, we have very, very big orders in the pipeline. So we can't afford to have these kinds of problems when we have the big orders. But I'll talk to you a little bit about the product first so that you guys get to understand what you're doing. So we're going to be looking through at a thing called world-class manufacturing. I'm not an expert, but I know enough about to be able to just give you guys some input in that thing, and we will work together to go build something that really lasts. All right, so let's understand what we're doing. Why are we doing this? What is the product? How does it work? Because you guys are not just a hand that works a machine. You're an arm, you're a heart, you're a head, your eyes, you're a person, you know? Okay, we like to think of you like that. And you all have opinions. There's no one who knows their job better than the person who works on the machine. All right? So the boss may know a lot, but the boss doesn't know the machine down the way we're doing the machine. Right? Because you work at it all day. Do that job. Okay, so this is what we do. Brand ID is a company that provides brand protection, and in this particular product is called Check Tag. And there are tags that we produce like this, and we stick them on the back or on the back cover of books like this. Okay? And what happens in Kenya, this is mainly for Kenyan Education Department and the Kenyan Publishing Association, and there's about 10 different publishers that we work for that actually buy these tags from us, stick them on their books. Okay. The problem that they've got is that an author will write a book, a lot of work in writing a book. He'll do all the illustrations. He will then find a publisher that will publish it for him. And then what the publisher will do, they'll do all the typesetting, they'll do all the layouts, they'll get everything, and then they'll pay the author per book. And what happens then, the publisher then comes to a printer, and they say to the printer, we want 200,000. First they go to the education department. They say, here's our book. They produce 2, 3, 4 samples digitally, and they put it in front of the education department, and the education department says, we like that one, we don't like this one, we like that one, we don't like this one. That one we're going to put as a textbook for the grade 3s for this next year. We want you to place, and there are, let me just tell you how many pupils there are in Kenya. There are 900,000 pupils in each standard in Kenya. That's how many pupils there are. That's government schools, not counting private schools. There's more private schools than there are government schools there. Okay? So 900,000 books. Sorry?
You must be a personal trainer to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it takes, there's a lot of work that goes into, a lot of cost that goes into the author's time when he writes the books, he does all the thing, he checks it, everything, and then the publisher goes to all the expense. Now he goes to the printer and he says, okay, the first allotment I'm going to print is 200,000 of these books. And what happens is the printer prints 200,000, but he's a scallop he goes on behind the scenes and he prints another 100,000.
Okay.
Now he doesn't have to pay the author, and he doesn't have to do the markup of all the work. He doesn't have to pay for all the work that the publisher does. And then he takes 100,000 and he puts it to one side. He delivers the 200,000 to them. He charges them. But then he takes 100,000 and he runs it through the back door. So you go into the bookshops, you'll see 2 books. You'll see exactly the same book.
Yes.
One book is the real book, and the other book looks exactly the same because it is the same. It's the same book, same printer, same paper, same everything. And this book will be, the counterfeit one will be 350 shillings, and the real one will be 450 shillings. So which one do you think the public's going to buy? The cheaper one. Yeah, that's right. So the booksellers lose out. The publisher loses out on that thing. And then the author doesn't get paid because they bought this other book. Okay? And you can walk into bookshops all over the country and they've got these books. One publisher, we did an assessment over 6 months. He lost $68,000 US in 6 months. And that was only on 3 books. Okay. He had a whole lot of other books as well. So the problem is huge. It is absolutely huge. We reckon that in Kenya, 40% of all products that are sold in the public space, you go to a shop, 40% of the products inside a shop like that would be counterfeit. It's very bad. So what we've done is that we invented this process, which is a combination of IT systems, which sit on your mobile phone, okay, and a tag, which you guys do all the printing on. And then what we do is we stick it on the back of the book like this. Now what that does, okay, it's got a scratch pad on it, but it doesn't matter what all this is. What the most important thing is that PIN number. And that PIN number is like your ID number in your book. If I had to type in your ID number, I'd get your name, I'd get your address, I'd get details about you, everything. I wouldn't get someone else's, I'd get yours. If I take his ID number and I put that in, I'd get his telephone, I'd get all the details of who he is. So what we do is we give each book an ID number. Unique, never used again. So when this book comes out, it gets this tag stuck on it. We don't have duplicates, okay? We only have that number. From that number, because we put it into our systems and we've sent those numbers to you guys and you guys print it here and you produce the products, what actually happens is that we can then, once that goes out into the market and it's sold and they scratch and they verify using their mobile phones, it's a free charge. We had 500,000 verifications with no incentives. That's how many people used the system and sent us information. From that information, we're able to suck out what's the good stuff. And so on one book, there were over 200,000 duplicated numbers. They just took the number, they took the book, they scratched it, and they put it into a very fast, you know those big photocopy lines? They just photocopy, they photocopy, they put it digitally, and this thing just spat out 200,000 books with exactly the same number. Over and over and over and over again, it was out in the marketplace, and that company lost sales because that book was cheaper. They lost sales of 200,000 over there. Okay, so in that country, as in this country, that is illegal. You've stolen someone else's intellectual property. Okay, it's actually subject to that. So what happens in this process is that we add serious value, not only back to, for example, the big order we got coming through now is for the government. The government's been sponsored by the World Bank to the tune of $100 million, and they put an allocation to site to put tags on everyone. Because what happens is that when the books arrive, the free books arrive for the pupils at schools, in the government schools, the teacher or the principal grabs the books and he sells it to the private school down the road, and the kids don't have any books. That's what's going on. All right? Very ugly stuff. So when those pupils start verifying their books, we get to see, oh my goodness, because we can pick up the GPS coordinates of these things. This thing's not there, it's here. This is not in the same town even. It's not even from the same school. So then we start to track it and we start sending little SMS messages to the people, say, where did you get your book? You know, where are you? What's your name? All these things. And then we send the police in and we bust the teachers and the principals. We get the books back. Okay? So that is really, we're doing an amazing work up there. There's some incredible things going on. There's some very funny things going as well. When we hit the main bookshop in Nairobi, the guy who was the owner of the bookshop got very upset, picked up his phone, and he phoned the government anti-counterfeiting agency. And he says, I've been hit by the police. What do I pay you bribes for? You meant to tip me off when these guys are coming. No, that's what's going on, you know. So ordinary kids are losing out because these people are greedy. Okay, so you need to know that you're doing an amazing work. Okay, this stuff is doing fantastic things. And it's the first time in Africa that they've had something like this going. So we're really on the cutting edge. So it gives you an idea. So what happens is that when they print the book, they stick onto the back of the book, or on the front, wherever they want to put it, but on the cover somewhere, they stick this. And that gives them a chance to go in and take that pin and that particular label, and when it's stuck on the book, they then just scratch it, and they use their mobile phone, and they send their number free of charge to us, and immediately we send them a message back. Okay, so that establishes the connection between the guy who reads the book and us and our system and the publisher. Now, we don't need a lot of those to be able to pick up the information we need of where things are at, what's happening, and we data mine that, and we pull out the information. I've got some really smart guys, not me, other guys working on this thing, sucking out the data and really making a difference. All right. So, can you see how powerful what we're doing up here? You're not just doing some crazy little print job, a label for a bottle or something like that. This is something really, really useful. Okay. So, what happens now? This job, this work is not like other work. Okay. It's more complex because it has a unique number on it and it has a scratch pin on it. So there's two components to it. And so what I want us to do is just talk about how the process flow works so that we can start to look at it about how we can bring excellence at every level of that. Because the key to doing this is to do it exactly the same every single time, no variation, in a disciplined, consistent way. Just keep doing the same thing over and over and delivering what we need with very high quality and no errors in the process. Okay, so we're going to learn how to do that. We're going to work together. We're going to talk together how that goes. So I'll tell you now that Mark generates all these pins that you see underneath these things over here. So here's pin generation over here. And that goes onto our system and it sits in Amazon. And then what he does, he sends that stuff to Wade's computers over here. And then you guys receive the pins over there. Then we get orders from the publishers. And they say, I need 2 million here, I need 500,000 there, I need 150,000 here. We have different size publishers, different size orders. But we have got some really big publishers working for us now, using our systems. Okay, so when that comes in, it goes down and it arrives at L and T. So tell me now, what happens to that thing? What happens next? Anybody can put that. Just tell me how the process flow works.
Okay, I set up the print files from there.
Print files.
Yeah. So I receive the data, set up the print files,
Yeah.
link the data files to them,
Okay.
generate the print sheets,
Generate.
print data sheets, which is the first check to make
Print.
sure they're running in sequence.
Data sheets. And the big thing over here is sequence. Okay.
Yeah.
But what we want to do is we want to produce unique, each pin is unique, never to be used again, okay? No duplicates. What happens after that?
After that, it gets printed. Before we start that,
Yeah.
Mark prints the first label.
No, I don't
No,
No.
you print.
Mark scans the first label before we start that.
So we do a
Yeah, but
strong-
you're first printing on the machine, aren't you?
No,
You're
no,
producing
no,
the
no,
raw
they
stuff.
print 5.
We only print 5 samples.
Oh, 5 samples. Okay, so this is a sample over here. So it's a sample, 5, sample times 5.
Yeah, which goes through the first order check.
Okay, and that's order check. Okay. So you guys have got the very first one laid out. All right.
So that gets scanned
Okay.
into a database, I suppose. It gets scanned and
Why?
recorded.
What?
Okay, so the first thing it does is it authenticates that it's the correct first
Number
label
2.
number, and it also puts a date and time stamp on
Right. So this is just a little sample one over here. Right. So when do you actually go to print on the MPS?
it. No. Okay, you got it. It's not a sample print because we don't have an EPS system. So what we do is on the print, we print the first 5 labels of the roll.
Yes.
We scan and check it. Then when we give the go-ahead, they continue the print.
But what you haven't got in this process is the printing process.
Oh, you mean the printing of the blanks?
Yes. On your
No,
sheet.
that's already done.
The variable
before,
data.
before all
Where
this
does that
happens.
come in? Yeah.
That happens before we even receive pins.
That's after we've received the purchase order, we would go ahead and
So that's before pin generation.
yeah.
Okay. So here we are.
Before
Print stock.
before
Yeah.
before pin
yeah.
generation, we would receive the purchase order from you guys,
Yes.
order raw materials, and then go to print, and
Yes.
then start the
So we print stock. You're LT the
Yeah.
pin gen, and on this is pin and order. Okay,
Order raw
happens over
materials,
here.
yeah.
Okay. Order. So all that, and you guys put all that together. You print the stock, and then we start. We put the print files together. Things. So there's quite a lot. You can see there's quite a lot of preliminary stuff that happens before you guys even see what goes in. Because this job, yes.
I really don't, I'm not that fast with my English.
Okay.
I'm just a little bit slow.
All right. So so can I talk slow, or can the others translate in Afrikaans for you?
Yes.
Who's going to translate?
I'll do explain for then.
All right.
Then, yeah.
Okay, but just translate in Afrikaans there,
Yeah.
okay? Right, so what happens, this job consists of 2 parts to it. Here's one with no variable data on. Can you see that? Just hand that around. You can see that's what it looks like when it gets to you
There's
guys.
the rolls there.
Okay. And here's one over here, no variable data on. What happens now is that Mark supplies the variable data, but you guys take the images that we've sent you and everything like that, you print that on the MPS. Now what happens, we have to bring variable data together with the printed stock. Okay, that sounds obvious, but if the quality of this is bad, you guys are going to have problems on these machines. Not so. So quality starts right back in this process. Okay, When Mark sends files to you over there, they need to be properly sequenced, they're properly in order, they need to be properly done, and then properly sent to you. He can't send duplicates, otherwise you guys will be printing duplicates. You don't go check whether there are duplicates in this thing. That's our job to do that. So on the print as well. So let's just talk about the print and the label over here. The big key about these jobs is that what happens is that they print them here in Cape Town. We get everything ready. We put it onto pallets. We pack it up properly. We put it on the truck. We put it on the aeroplane, and then it arrives in Kenya. When it arrives in Kenya, you have all these boxes of the stuff. It goes straight into customs. And what happens in customs, custom then defines what the value is, and they slap 43% or 42% onto the price of whatever it's cost us here in Cape Town. So the price nearly goes up by 50% again to get it into the country. So if we paid 1 cent, we would have to pay another ½ cent in taxes, import duties, shipping costs, and everything else to bring it in there. So in fact, the cost when it lands with the client, cost price of the label is not 1 cent, which is what L&T charges, it's 1.5 cents. So it starts becoming really expensive. So the key to getting everything right is to make sure that you go back as far into the chain and that what comes off the printing machine is good for you guys to use. The worse that stock is, the more you're going to battle on those QLS, what are you using? Citizens, eh?
Yeah.
And zero, so that in that process, so the quality control starts already in the factory, because what you want delivered to the guys that are putting the variable data in is as close to perfect a roll as possible. Okay, no splits, no breaks, missing labels. All these things will cause problems for you guys, and then begin to cause issues as far as the numbers are concerned. Okay, so I'm just making a point of it because we can come back. We're going to go through the whole process. So here it comes through. Printed stock arrives, we've got the print files, we've got the linked data, and now we're scanning the process. Now what we do is we apply variable data, are we, generally? Is that what happens? Apply variable data. Okay. Are you working with these little rolls? How big are these rolls that we use on the machines? How many on a roll?
5,000, but we're now going to 10,000.
To 10,000, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So there's 10,000 on a roll, and we have 10,000 on a roll. Okay, so when we produce that 10,000, we can see some issues. But let's just map the process up. What happens once you finish the roll? What happens next? You finish the roll, you apply the variable data. What happens when you got that roll on there, and you want to print this roll? Do you select from what? Select from a particular file, and there's 10,000 numbers on it? How does it work?
Okay. So what happens is when they start the print,
Yeah.
so we print them in batches of 10,000 to match the roll size.
Yes.
Okay. So we scan the first the barcode, which is linked to the serial number. We scan that at the start of each roll, so we know that when we start the print,
Yes.
it's the correct sequence. So we've had cases in the past where they would when we would do a start print,
Yeah.
and I would scan it, and the system would actually tell me that this is actually already been printed.
It's a duplicate.
Yes. So we actually eliminate the print of the duplicate roll
On the first 5 labels.
on the first 5 labels.
On the first 5
And
samples.
And your spreadsheet also allows you to check, because you've got the start of the first roll, the end of the first roll, which is 10,000. Then your next column would be the start of the next 10,000 and the end of the next 10,000.
So
Okay.
yes, okay. So what would happen is, so we give, so the scan check on the first print would prevent duplication of printing variable data. So we've got that in place. After the roll is printed with variable data, do we then scan it then again, or do we scan it only?
Yeah, we scan it when we put it in the shipper box also.
No,
Just
yeah, okay.
the
I'm
first
trying to remember.
number and the last number.
Okay, when do I
Do you
scan?
scan the first and the last number?
We do.
Yeah.
I'm just,
On the
oh
roll.
yes, okay. So when
Scan
they
check.
finished, when they finished printing the roll, we scan the roll again. So we scan the last. So at the beginning we scan the first number.
Yeah.
At the end of the roll we scan the last number, and then that closes the loop for that roll. Okay. And
Okay.
so
That's
that's
not
what
finished
happens.
roll.
Yes. Finished. That's just coding, right?
Okay. And then what happens?
it then goes down for paneling.
Okay, then it goes to scratch panel.
Yeah.
Okay. On that process, what happens when it finishes the scratch panel?
Okay. So what will happen is at that point, the roll is ready to be
Thank you.
the roll is ready to be placed in the shipper box.
Okay.
And then we do a double scan. We scan the roll, and we scan the shipper label to ensure that the correct roll goes into the correct box
Scan label
and
and
shipper label.
shipper label.
Yeah,
So you marry the two together.
absolutely. And then
Shipper
once
label.
once we do that, we
Okay.
can then place. And then at that point, they trim the waste off, because that was an earlier issue we had.
Trim
So
waste.
We trim waste.
Okay. And then
It gets placed in the box and it's closed and sealed.
And the stickers put on there.
boxed, closed,
And the shipper labels applied.
and sealed with shipper label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, so we've now documented the process.
All of that gets recorded date and time and
Okay.
and
So then we
verified.
we take the logs of that thing, and then Mark sends it out, and the logs, so you guys don't even see half of that. The logs will go,
Yeah,
send it to the
after it's boxed, they do a final check against your delivery note
Yes,
before they palletize it.
yes. So we do delivery notes, and we have to supply all those details to the customs officials and everything. So Mark handles all the documentation. That's not necessary for this particular case.
Okay, so then after that, they check every single box
Yes,
next
According to the
according to the
delivery
delivery note,
Yeah.
and then it gets palletized.
okay.
Yes, so to ensure that
Every box is
that
there.
the box is ticked off against the delivery note.
Okay, all right, excellent. Okay, so we've now just really roughly documented the process over here. It flows like this, these bits and pieces happen here, and it comes down and finishes off over here. Okay, that's more or less what it looks like. Okay, so it's not my job to tell you how to do your job. It's my job just to help you to think through where we've got issues and where we've got problems. Now, you pick up issues when the issues that come out with the print or with the delivery or with wastage inside the factory. You know what it's like if you're on the machine and constantly slop and the machine is running and there's a problem. You could run through a hell of a lot of paper and not pick up the problem, and then you've got the wastage. Okay, so for us, wastage is a huge problem. So let me tell you what happens if they pick up a couple of labels. I'll put a couple of pictures up for you here. If they pick up a couple of labels that are incorrect on it, this is what starts to happen with our clients. Okay, they start losing confidence and they think to themselves, okay, I'm sending this out, and this is what they do. They order not only in Kenya from the publisher, so they're sending it to a book printer, but they order in India and up in Malaysia. We send the stock to these places. So when the stock arrives there, there's no coming back. It's gone.
Okay.
If there's a mistake there, we can't get it back. We just have to replace it completely.
Now they have questions.
Yeah, and now they are wanting that stock. Remember what's happened. He's paid for the books. He's paid something for the labels or put the deposit down or whatever he's done for it. Now the books are finished and he's paid for them. He's got to get them back to Kenya and get them into the shops and get them as fast as possible. Why? Because he's paid money out, and now that's just time is money. That's what it means. He hasn't sold it. So his money is sitting in books, but there's no point in having books in Malaysia. He has to sell them in Kenya. Then he can't move them because he hasn't got the labels, or he hasn't got enough labels. So it's critical that we understand that the process for us is that we need to make sure that if we say there are 10,000 on a label batch, that there really are 10,000. 9,999 is not good enough. 10,001 is going to cause questions. And they say, well, why is there an extra one on there? Let me tell you why that's important. Because when he places his order for 200,000 books, he goes like this. Here's the order for 200,000 books, okay? And then what he does, he takes your box of labels and he says, well, there's 10,000 boxes there. Here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20 boxes of 10,000 labels each. So if this guy tries to run on with an extra 100,000, he wants to produce 300 smokkel behind the scenes, he hasn't got labels for them. So if we give them 10,222, it may seem like a small problem, but that guy will keep the 222 and he'll put it on the small books. And they'll be regarded as real thing. Yeah, but we can't tell the difference. The only way we can tell the difference between the small stuff and the good stuff is if it's got a label on it and it's a genuine label. Okay, so you can see there are lots of issues in the background over here, and that's why we get so fussy about what this is. So this is not a difficult job to do, it's just very diligent, and we need to set standards at every process. Okay, so let me talk to you a little bit about world-class manufacturing. So I've talked to you a little bit about what the product is. It's a label on a book, and what this label does is tell us that this is a genuine, real book, owned, the intellectual property is owned by the publisher. He's got out, he's bought the books, the Kenyan Education Department has approved it, and he puts it out in the market, and parents go and buy these books. Government goes and buy it, and it's the real thing. Okay. What happens then? We've talked about how it's used. They scratch it off, they send an SMS back to us, we collect the data on that pin. Now, if your pin is not printed properly, what do you think is going to happen? Let's just say you print and the last digit, there's 16 digits. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Just make a 16 digit like that. And the last digit is an 8. Now, did you guys ever use scratch cards to recharge your cell phones?
Yes.
Did you ever put the wrong number in?
Yes.
What happened?
And it doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Okay? Same with our system. You've got to get every number on in the right place. The right number in the right place. So, if you had a mistake on your printing, okay, and this 8 looked like that, okay, suddenly, or like that, okay, this pin will not work. And the signal will come back to him and say to him, this is probably a counterfeit book that you've got. We'll come back to the buyer. Okay, so it's important that we keep eyes onto what we're printing and when we print it. Okay, so I'm just talking to you a little bit about how it's used and why it's used. So the pin on this thing is the most important thing that we've got. The next thing we've got on there is there's obviously what we call non-variable image, which is printed down on the printing machine. The variable image is the stuff that changes all the time. The 2D barcode changes, all the information changes here. That's what we call variable data. It changes every single pin. Okay, so what do we want to do here? So who uses this? Well, the publishers use it, the school guys use it, the government uses it, everybody uses it in terms of where and to get the information they need. And what's happening as we get the information and close down these counterfeit rings and capture the guys and prosecute them and throw them in jail or hand them huge fines, the profits for the book, the publishers are going up. What's happening when we got into Kenya, publishers were having huge orders from the government, okay? But in fact, what was happening is that they were shedding staff because they weren't making any money. Who was making the money? The counterfeiters. They were making the money, okay? So what we're doing is we're also saving jobs in terms of that process. So what does it cost to go to Kenya? Well, as I said to you, not only the price that Label and Technique charges us, but also the additional cost of import duty, shipping, VAT, and administrative charges, everything like that. Mark, what's it about 42, 43%? Eh?
It's 44%.
44%.
There's 44%
So
for
it's-
both customs VAT and import duties.
Yes.
And what they call they have a thing called an IDF,
Yes.
import declaration
Okay.
form, and then that excludes clearing and shipping, and all
Yes.
that.
Yes. Okay. So if it goes to that's Kenya. If it goes to Uganda, it's more than 55%. So it's very heavy. The taxes, everything, getting it in and out of the country is absolutely huge. All right. So let's have a look here. So what are the principles of what we want to talk about today? Is that I want to talk to you a little bit about when we make the order, how do we make it? What kind of attitude should we have towards it? You see, so you can just be a worker, a whacker, okay? And all you do is you're a pair of hands and you just do the job. But in fact, quality begins with your eyes. You're not just a worker. Your hands, your arms, your heart, your eyes, your ears, your mind. You've got all these things. You've got all these gifts over there. So the key to this thing is that the job that you do and the output that you give is dependent on you and the kind of attitude that you have towards your work and the kind of thing that you do. But most of all, from the company's point of view and from our point of view, what we want to do, which is to say, is to take as much doubt about the decisions that you make out of the process. So what does a good tag look like? It may sound obvious. Yeah, it may sound obvious, but you might say it looks like this, you might say it looks like that. And now it's a discussion point, but we need to say it looks like this. And we put a tag in front of you, that's a good tag, that's a bad tag. So let me show you what a bad tag looks like. That's a bad tag. Why is it a bad tag?
Because the number shows.
That's right. There's no security in it. What the scratch panel does shows that it's tamper evident, you know. The pin is there. So if this is just on books, but there's some jobs we do where that pin, like a recharge voucher, is worth a couple of dollars. Now it shows, and there's no covering on it. The guys are going to lose money. Simple as that. Okay. So there's all kinds of issues around the process. Okay. So that is a bad tag. All right. So when we look at that kind of thing, this kind of thing starts to happen. They say, well, how many more have we got of this kind of process? Okay. So even when you get one, the client says, oh my goodness, this is showing over here. We need to make sure. And then they start pulling the darn stuff out, and that's what we get roles starting to look like this now, you know. And they start to check what we should have checked. In Kenya, not in South Africa, with 50% added onto the cost. Okay. Now it becomes a crisis. Okay. So how we do it over here is very powerful in that if we do that well, we make that order well, we can do it. So what we want to do is we want to streamline the process in such a way that you guys can work it really well. So we don't have 5 people doing one job and 1 person doing another job, and the stuff just piles up and piles up and piles up. You want to be able to, everybody's doing a bit, and it just keeps adding to it, just keeps adding to it, just keeps adding to it. And we don't duplicate effort, we don't duplicate someone else's work. We only do it once, and we do it well, and that will make it efficient. Wade then makes good money out of the job because it's not, he doesn't have to put 10 people on, he can put 7 people on and still accomplish the same sort of output. Okay, so getting organized inside here is very much dependent on whether you guys can think about the job and think about what you're doing, and you can actually speak up and say something. So the key to doing it, the right attitude, is that when you put it onto the machine, you need to have the attitude, and when it goes on the machine, it's right first time. Not right second time, or third time, or fourth time. That creates waste, and waste time, and waste effort, and waste material. When it goes into that process, so right first time is also key to world-class manufacturing. Okay, so when we work together in a group like this, we each do a little bit of it. Okay, we each do a little bit. So if we start over there, and we do piece number 1, then it goes there to piece number 2. But at piece number 2, there was a problem, but she didn't spot it. Or she did spot it and just kept quiet about it. Then it goes to 3. Now we've added value to it. Then it goes to 4. We've added more value to it. Now we go to number 5, and we've added even more value. So the time and the effort and the energy that's had for 3, 4, and 5 has gone into that product now. Now we come to the end, we say, there's a problem here. It has to go all the way back there again. Start again. But if we catch it here, we don't lose that, we don't lose that, we don't lose that in terms of time and effort and the materials that go into it. You know what it's like. When you're running a machine, you're using ribbons. Ribbons are really expensive. Self-adhesive is expensive. Your time is expensive. All that adds up to the process. That's why I say that when you're working with things, not only do you do it right first time, but you also do it when you hit a problem. Don't cover it up.
But don't be scared to ask.
Don't cover it up. You know why? It'll go all the way to Kenya.
And go come out.
Yeah, and Florence will pick it up, and then pick up the phone to my guys up there and go, fluke, 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 come fetch your stuff, this is all junk. Give us our money back. You know what I'm saying? That's what happens. And then I come along on our phone, wait, and I say, fluke, 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 fluke. We know what's going on, or mark, whatever it is. So the repercussions of that. So what you want to do is, okay, so these are the values you have. When you make this thing right first time, if you have doubt, stop. Look, check. When you get tired and now it's 4 o'clock and you're running and thinking, hey man, I'm going to catch a bus and have a party tonight. I'm thinking about my party and I'm going to have fun with these things. And now I run it like this, and I go, I'm looking at it, but I'm not looking at the machine. And the junk is running through. Now the problem with the junk running through is that it's on the inside here. You can't see it. It's not like sheets of paper that you lift up. You can see it. You can't see it inside here. But you know what? It's then sent to Malaysia, and they put the junk on the book. And then they say, oh my goodness, this doesn't work, I can see the pin. Now what happens? We have to put another label onto that, on top of that other label. That's all that labor, taking them out of the boxes, opening up the boxes, sticking more labels onto it, putting them back in the boxes again. So we have to buy more labels, buy more boxes, buy more tape, buy more labor, buy all those things to fix up what should be fixed up here. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So what you want to do is we want to cut out, so what we're looking for, the ultimate that we're looking for is zero defect. That when we come out of here, nothing is wrong. That's what we're working towards. Now, that's kind of really hard to get to, because we know print. We know print is an imperfect process. But what you want to be able to do is that you want to be able to say, catch whatever's happening over there, and if you think there's a problem with it, you stop and you say, I think there's a problem over here. So everyone needs to feel like they're responsible and say, hey, I think I've got a problem here. Can someone make a decision? What are we going to do? Are we going to trash this thing? Are we going to redo it again? Is it okay? Are we going to get past? And what we'll do with you guys over here, we'll set out here in front of you what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And it'll be clear. There'll be no doubt about where that's at, you know. And if there's any issues, then your senior managers have got good judgment calls on that. We know we know what works. If you have any further doubts, you can give us a call. We're happy to come here and marks with you guys as well. Okay. So the big issue about this process is that you want to get consistency. You have to get consistency. The consistency means that I produce the same thing every day consistently with as close to zero defect as possible, over and over and over and over again. Okay. There's great power in that. And these guys, no one else can do that. Okay? I'm telling you now, this stuff with variable data and all that sort of thing like that is not something that a lot of printers do, not that a lot of people do. And we have a completely unique product, and that gives us an opportunity to get more orders and give you guys more orders. That means more work for everybody. Okay, so that's the power of getting consistency. So just remember that you guys are more than just work. You're just a labourer or a semi-skilled or a highly skilled person working in the place. You have eyes, you have ears, and it's your responsibility to pick up your section and just to keep eyes and work with each other. You're not working against each other. You're not trying to catch the other guy up so you get them fired. That's not what it's about. It's about saying, hey, guys, we've got an end product to come. And what you want to be able to do is to say, at the end of the day, there's huge job satisfaction from doing things with excellence. You know you did a great job, and you come at the end of the day, there's great satisfaction in that. Okay? There's not such great satisfaction to know that you stuffed up and you kept quiet and it went all the way to Kenya, and then Alan and Mark came down here and descended on Label Techniques as mad as a snake because they're not getting paid for the work that they produced. Okay? So there's something really important there. All right, so let's have a look. So what is the goal that we're looking for in this thing? So we want to get to the place where we're not measuring ourselves by the lowest possible thing that we can get away with. As bad a print as possible, we just stick it all in. I'm a printer, I know what it's like. We print, we have overs, but you have a bit of waste, so you throw the rubbish in there as a little bit as well, just because they know you're not going to catch all of it, just a little bit you put in there. But in this thing, they'll find it. Why? Because you've got people sitting there sending these numbers in, lots of them. We never know where it's going to land up. And the information that we get back from that does get picked up. All right. So we want to eliminate waste. Why? Because we want to make the job profitable. If it's not profitable, no point in doing the business, no jobs. Okay? So that's important. We want to streamline the production so it's effective, it's efficient, and we want to be able to get job satisfaction into the process as well. So what we want to do is we need to get you guys involved in the process. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this now, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we can get improvement in the place, how we can get an output of consistent quality in process, so that when the order, you've been doing orders for 2.5, you know what's sitting in the pipeline? 36 million. Okay, so we've got, what, 6 weeks, eh? 6 weeks worth of work? 6 weeks. If you produce 6 weeks worth of work and 1% is junk, you know how much that is? It's 360,000 labels. Now print says 10% waste, 5% waste. 1% is just a nightmare for us. Why? Because it goes out in the field, we can't get it back. It's stuck on books, brought back, and then distributed all over the country. We cannot get it back. Okay? So the implications of that, they just don't pay. All right, so we have an amazing opportunity of getting there. We get this right, they will be repeating this job for the next 5 years, every year. So some interesting stuff there. So really what I'd like to be able to do is just point out a couple of things over here where things went wrong, so we can have a look at some of the processes of where I'd like to see some improvements in the process. Obviously, that is an absolute no-no. Interesting fact, the guys went last night, they looked at Moran. Moran we did not this last order, but the order before, wasn't it?
Moran was the last order. There was 1 million Moran
We
and
did more.
100,000 Pearson.
Okay, so let me just tell you now that what they did, so you need to just have a look at the scratch, at the wax level, because what we delivered recently for Spotlight, you can see the impression on it, okay? And you can see the impression of the number when you turn it onto the light like that, but Moran hasn't got that.
Spotlight was in May. Spotlight was
It was
the
in
previous
May.
order.
It was the stuff. It was the
They
stuff
weren't
that
run
we-
at the same time.
Yeah, no, they were on at different times. All I'm just asking
But
is,
it's the same
did we
product.
change the wax label? Did we change the pressures? Did we
Same.
change everything was the same. So we're using the same material. We're using the same,
Same ribbons from the
same
supplier.
ribbons,
So
okay.
it was
I'm
obviously
using
a
it.
bad batch.
Okay, so
Must
all
have
I'm
been the
saying
batch
is, yeah.
issue.
So what we're getting now is strike through on this thing, but I think that, I'm not sure what causes that. Do you have any idea what causes that?
That's tension.
That could be tension, yeah. That more than likely is tension.
All right.
And that's-
So it means that they've put the roll
It was
on.
probably either coming to the end of the roll of the ribbon,
Yeah,
where it starts, the tension starts sliding,
okay.
and that's where they're supposed to stop.
Okay, so what makes sense when you come into the end of the roll? Think about this now. You come into the end of the roll, you're operating machine. What makes sense? What should you be looking for?
I was looking for where the problem is.
Yeah. Well, you're looking if there is a problem, not so. So when you come into the end of the roll, you must know, hey, this is the end of the roll. So let me look and see if that's happening. Does that make sense?
You're talking about the ink roll, eh? He's
Yeah.
talking about the ink roll.
I'm
now,
talking-
the ribbon.
I'm talking the ribbon, yeah.
Okay.
The ribbon's coming to the end. You know the ribbon as it
Yeah.
starts to lose tension and everything. Obviously, that's what you're saying over there.
Yeah.
So that's like working smart. Not so. Most of the time, it's just running through. It's fine.
Dis 'n ribbon.
Yeah.
Dis is 'n ribbon.
Sorry, ik sta niet zo lekker. Wanneer ik zo niet wat heb, ik zo naar Pieter.
Oh, kan nie. Positief
Kom,
mense
nee,
van
ik
Afrika.
stuur weer.
Yeah.
But this is a ribbon. So if this thing gets smaller, then you start stopping the machine and check for that.
Well, you can see it running past.
So
You can see
wat
it.
hy probeer verduidelik is, wanneer jy die ribbon begin, dan werk hy lekker en sy swart. Sodra jy naby aan die einde kom, dan is hy nie meer so styf opgerol nie. So dan wat gebeur is die ribbon trek en dan kry jy nie so swart soos wat jy hom gekry het in die begin nie. So jy moet altyd kyk as jy aan die einde van die ribbon kom, dat dit nie so lig is nie, dat hy nog steeds dens is, dat hy nog steeds pikswart is, dat jy nie daai nommers kan deursien nie.
Enige probleme wat jy nie van hou nie, stop die masjien daarop sê vir my.
Okay,
Ja.
is right.
Okay.
We will drop it on the next order. We
Yes.
will drop a checklist of things to look for. So it's the quality of the scratch panel will be one.
Yes.
The other thing is that we will check to whether the barcode has been cut. Because sometimes the edge of the ribbon doesn't cover the image, and then they cut off the edge of the cut off the last digit of the serial number. Then every serial number looks the same because it
Yeah,
goes 1, 2,
the
3,
check
4,
digits
5.
at the end.
So it's 8, 1, 8, 2, 8, 3. So you got a ribbon that goes 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, or 10.
Okay.
And then you see, so then we'll drop a list of things are cutting numbers, cutting barcodes, scratch panel quality.
Just making sure that your ribbon is right onto the machine.
Okay, so there's a due process that's here. If you're just talking about the machine area now, so now what happens? The roll comes to you. You pick up a roll, it's printed, but it's got no variable data on it. Your first thing would be to look at the roll and say to yourself, man, can I see any problems with the roll? Don't just take any roll, stick it on. You put junk on there, you can see it's a problem. You can see holes on the side over here. Just look at it. Just see if it's fine. When you put it on, and you can see, so that's your first check. When you put your ribbon on and you start your run, we're really doing a scan check, okay, on the thing. Look at the image at that point. So what we used to do with this thing is that someone would sign off before you can start to run. So you sign off on the scan check and you sign off on the quality of the print that you're laying down. Are all the numbers there? Count the serial numbers. Count the pin numbers. Have a look at the quality of what you're laying. If you're laying down pin numbers, that's the one thing. If you're laying down blocks, I looked at I got a couple of pictures of different rolls, lots of different rolls. It's exactly the same hole on all of them. Just again and 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 again, from roll to roll to roll to roll to roll. That's a setting issue. Okay, so just again, and I know on printing the block, it's sometimes difficult because it varies and it doesn't print a completely square block. But we shouldn't be having 5 rolls of exactly the same problem. You guys should be just tweaking a bit, changing a bit, just to make sure that the thing prints properly. Just think about that, because if that's on one side over there, it just means, what is that, a pressure problem on the one side? It just means that the thing's lifted slightly on one side. Just got to bring it down a bit on that side, and it'll then print properly on that thing. Okay. Why do we think about these small things? Is that critical to the job? Does the thing tag still work? No, it still works. The mayor of New York had a lot of problems in his city. There was a lot of rubbish going on. There was theft. There was broken windows. There was a lot of crime and everything. Okay. Do you know what they did to beat the crime? They actually started to catch people who were throwing stoppies and bubblegum on the ground and throwing papers. They started to catch them and find them. And the crime rate just went like this. Why did it do that? People realized that if I can't get away with throwing a stoppie on the ground, then I'm going to get caught for the other stuff as well. Guys, people are watching me. So some people don't care, some people do. But the crime rate dropped. So when we look at the small things and we also fix the small things, we don't just say, oh, well, it doesn't matter. It does matter, because eventually the small things become the big things. Now it's just one small thing, it's 2 small things, then it's 3 small things. So the issue in factories, when you do health and safety, you'll watch this. When problems start, like we've got now, you have. So when you start with little problems, just look at what you're doing. Watch what's going on there, and you'll see, fix these little things up. If you can't fix it, get someone in there. Just say, listen, I'm not quite happy how this is running. Just help me do a setting over here, and you just fix it up. Just fix it up. Don't stop the run. Don't slow down every 2 minutes, because it's absolutely not 110% kind of story like that. But just as you're running, you can do slight adjustments on the thing and just start it there, because it'll keep your eyes on the job. You're not out there looking at the weather, thinking about the beach on Saturday, and you know what you're going to have for lunch. Eyes on the job. Why? Because we're looking to catch the problem before it gets to Kenya, before it goes to the next person. All right. Does that make sense?
It's quite easy for you guys to do the check, because as you guys are running, you can do your first check, and then obviously you guys let it run a little bit, and then when you wind it up, that can be your second check. So it's not too fast for your eyes. If it's maybe too fast here, do your second check when you're winding up the roll.
Okay. So everybody's going to have a desk, and everybody's going to have a space. On your piece of paper, on your space, it'll be taped down over there. There will be a piece, there'll be a tag stuck down on it, and it'll say, this is a perfect tag. And there'll be another tag, a picture of a tag like that, that says, that's not a perfect tag. That's a good one, that's a bad one. There'll be a picture of another tag, and it'll have the scratch panel, but the scratch panel will be broken on the edge, and will say, fix. This is a reject, okay, but this is a fix. This one's fine. So you guys can see we can do these things. And then it'll say to you, 1, get your signature. Someone needs to sign off before you start to run. So not only have you done the scan, you've checked the numbers, but you do the sign off on the thing. So someone's coming there, the supervisor comes up and says, okay, I'm happy that you're about to run. Why is that? Well, if you're printing a duplicate number, you're going to print 10,000 of those, and we can throw that stock away. Okay? If you're going to print it badly, we're going to have to throw the stock away, and you're going to have to print it again. So take the beginning of the run, and all you need is one supervisor, a second pair of eyes. Not just your eyes, because you get so used to looking at the thing, you look right past it. In the bank, if you work in the bank, you know the bank's got a vault in it. Inside the vault, all the cash sits. You know how the bank works. They call it a 4-eye principle. You're not allowed to walk into that vault by yourself. You've got to walk with another person. So I have to go to the vault, just come with me now, we're going to walk in together. Why is that?
Did you observe more?
Yeah, there's accountability. In other words, if you walk in and something goes missing, they say, you walked in by yourself, it's you. But if someone walks in with you, you're safe.
Account for what?
Yeah, you're safe. Okay, so work together in the thing. One person comes along, even the person next to you is not looking at, and they're doing blocks and you're doing variable data, just have a look at it and see if you see anything. You know, we're working together to achieve what? zero defect. We want the best product out there. We want to get that thing together. So you work together. So I would suggest, Mark, that we set up on that sheet over there, on a sheet for every page, for every role, and we put the quality control. We can even put that quality control sheet into the box. Because you know what the question was from Spotlight?
To program that.
You know what question
I'll
was?
write the program to do it automated.
Fine. Do it automated,
Otherwise
or
it's
faster,
gonna
or
be a
ticket.
mission.
What, do you know what Spotlight said? I got the mail last night. He said, don't these guys check their work? You know, so, you know, because they're recognizing that it's cost over there, and it's costing them to get stock over there, and now the stock is bad. Okay, so what we need to do is that we just need to get into the process of actually working out that thing. So design whatever it is over here you need to be able to check that thing. So what are the checks? Just think about this. When you've got a role on there now, and your job is to put variable data on it. You're putting a pin, you're putting a barcode, and you're putting the serial number on it. What are you going to check? Think about it.
Who of you have done the job before? Bianca, you've done the job before.
Okay.
So if you're putting on the numbers and you're putting on the barcode, that is what you're going to check. Check that every single number is crisp, it's clear, you can read it. The barcode doesn't have any lines through it.
Does the barcode scan?
You
What's
guys
the point of
scan the
producing
barcodes as well?
10,000 barcodes and the barcodes don't scan?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what I'm saying? So these are the kind of checks that we did when we did the voucher business over there. So what I'm saying is that when we look after all those other things, and it doesn't take long, it takes 30 seconds to go through that check, and then you can start to run again. It's quick. But it takes, how long does it take to run 10,000 on a machine? 15 minutes? 20 minutes. You'll run for 20 minutes, all that material, you haven't checked it properly, you could throw it away, and you're going to redo another 20 minutes. Okay, so 30 seconds is small time in terms of being able to do that. So Mark's going to design a sheet for you in which we'll put these things out. Everybody will understand what's good, what's bad, what needs to be fixed, and then we'll have the tick in the box for passing the job.
Checklist.
A checklist, passing the job. Check the scan. Check are there all the numbers printed?
What we're going to also do is what we used to do at Securitech was that you actually each role on the check sheet we will put which printer it is.
Yes.
Who was the printer?
Who was the supervisor?
Yes.
Who checked it?
Yes.
So when I remember when we were there, when we used to do stuff for, I remember we had an issue with Vodacom Mozambique. They came back and they said it. So all we did was we pulled out the file and we said, you, and you, and that's how they were able to identify who caused the problem.
Yeah.
So that's probably the next step for us.
Stay. So this is stay.
So the key is always that it takes time to learn how to do this really well and how to do it consistently. But if you don't commit yourself to the place of getting better and better and better and better, and if you just leave the problems, what happens is that it always gets worse, 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 and worse. So what's happened is that we've sorted out some of the problems, but we've not understood that the pawpaw hits the fan when we start having a number of issues and we don't have checks and balances in place. Okay. So what's happened now is that we've got two roles that we've actually dumped, which we're going to have to reprint again and just give to the client for free. Pay the import duties, pay the shipping costs, and just give them that because they're not happy with the quality of what's being delivered to them. They're not prepared to put that onto the book. And that's what they're going through over there, which is not great. Okay. So all I'm saying to you is that we understand that there's a learning curve. But if you don't have anything in place, how do you learn? If you don't know what the mistake is, how do you learn from that? If you don't understand what's perfect, what's not so perfect, what's okay, and what's a reject, we need to measure that. We need to be able to put those clearly down so there's no doubt in your mind. And if there's still doubt, if you're not sure, you can ask the supervisor, and the supervisor will just make a call on it. Okay? All right. So that is just on the printing. So on the blocks, now the key when it comes to the next phase onto that thing, is there anything else in this stage over here? So let's just have a look. We're going to do interventions over here. Let's apply variable data. So what are we going to do with the variable data? We're going to put together a check sheet. So Mark will help design a check sheet with you guys over here, something that's practical, that doesn't take 2 hours to sort out. It takes 20 seconds or 30 seconds to check. check this, check that, check this, check this, check that, check that. So we just actually get into a process. Every time a roll starts to run, and at the end of the roll, there is begin, check, end, check, list, end, check, list. Whatever that is, just so that we can actually get consistency in the process, all right? And then we can take those check sheets and we can put them in the box, or keep them aside so that we have records of where that's at. Okay, so that's what we've done in terms of what else can we do here? What can we do on the stock that comes off the factory floor to see that it's okay? Is there anything we can do with that? What can we do there when they take that and they roll it? What are you running with a 330 wide? What are you doing with it? 330 and then you slip down. What happens in that slitting process to everything? So first of all, we're not going to make any blanks.
No more
anything.
splicing.
No more splicing on that process. We just want 10,000 in that thing. So the nice thing about this business is that it's not like vouchers. If there's a problem with a particular label, and it's, what's the name, just take it off, It doesn't matter. We'll work somehow, we'll work the pins, we'll delete the pins or whatever it is. So this is not like vouchers where you had to get 10,000 in perfectly sequenced, nothing missing, nothing duplicated, and everything printed perfectly. This job is easier than scratch vouchers. All right. So what can we do with that stock that's coming off the floor? What kind of problems were you hitting when it came off the floor and came onto the variable data printing?
This only the where it was.
It could have been
yeah.
registration, print registration, where the black text was a bit too
With
high
that, yeah.
or too low on the bottom so that we didn't have enough space to overprint.
That's okay.
And splicing, but splicing was the bigger issue. But
Okay.
that's now.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
been
so-
phased out.
So in this area over here, before you get to here, before you've taken all the trouble of taking this roll, putting it on the machine, putting it down, weaving it through the machine like that, you don't want to then find out, oh my goodness, registration is awful on this thing. Now I have to take it back off again. So what are you going to do about that stock before it gets to the print machines? What are you going to do about sorting it? Like you can't know what's on the inside here, but you can look what's on the outside and just pull it out like this and put it back again and get an inclination. We want to reduce the amount of damaged or problematic stuff arriving with the variable data, because variable data doesn't have time to not only look at the variable data printing. If you're asking them to look at this printing as well, I think that's a bridge too far.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that the actual printing of the labels on
Yes.
the floor
Yes.
is the production manager and the rewinder's responsibility to QC check before it goes up.
Okay.
That has been brought under their attention and it has been told
Yeah.
that
Okay.
that is their responsibility. We've brought up the issues that we've had before,
Yes.
but I think it is a good idea just before you guys put the roll on, just quickly just check the outside of the roll,
Yeah.
make sure nothing's
And
wrong, just a second check.
There is a
Sorry.
a space where the
Yeah, this
label
is just
goes
a
into the
sticky
machine before it goes
Yeah,
into the
I took
machine.
this off.
You scan, stand, and spot check before it gets printed on.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So now and then you stand up, look, let it run a little, then you see, okay, it's fine, then it's fine.
Yeah.
You
So they are
understand? There is
it was
time.
just a second check again, because the guys on the floor must check it. That's the first and the most important check, and then from there on, it's just the second check for you
Yeah.
guys.
Sometimes when the machine is running, they clean the machine. They stop, they clean because there's something wrong on the plate or
Ink
something.
build up.
It's ink build up or something like that.
whatever.
And then they start to run again, and then some of the image is missing. And because it's running so fast on those presses, the guys can't catch it. And there's a roll as big as this. He's running. He's got to get the job out. So when it comes to the process of even doing the slitting and the rewind, there they'll pick up some of the problems.
Yeah.
But just keep your eye open. If you print onto that stuff, it becomes a reject.
Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes it's not possible because it's right on the inside here. You don't see it. But just keep your eyes open. Just what everybody's doing is just looking after the guy next to them. That's what they're doing. Okay, we're not trying to. I'm only doing mine, and they didn't do their job properly, and so I don't care. You know.
To build in
All right.
Bayern.
All right. So yeah, even on the print process here. So print the files onto yes, print stock. Okay. On this thing, maybe what we need to do is just have a preliminary check before we hand it to the guys over here. So we do a print check. Is there?
There is
Great.
on because we process job cards for it,
Okay.
and all the quality checks has to be signed off on that specific job card before it gets sent out.
Brilliant. Okay, so there's the job card over here.
And there's quality standards, and there's all sorts of things that go with our own printing process.
Cool. All right. So when you get a roll that looks a bit dodgy, okay, then rather just take it and put it aside. You can take some time later and look at it, and we can just grab another roll. All right. You try and
just
get
do a
the.
spot check on the roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expired,
Just look at
and everything.
What's it look? Is it looking okay? You know, is there anything? Can I see anything wrong inside? Is the printing all there? And we'll print. We'll show you a picture over here. So this is another thing over here. What on the non-variable data, non-variable printing. This is what it should look like. So you know what it should look like. It's there. So every time we change it, because sometimes we change that image because we don't print for books anymore. We print for galvanized tin, or we print for paint, or we print for something else. You know, and there's a different image. So we'll show you what that image should look like, what should be there.
Yes.
If it's missing, you say, no, this is not the same as that. Why is that? This is missing here. What's gone? There's a second color that's gone for whatever reason. Take it all, put it to one side. Okay, so just that sort of thing. So we'll put these things, everybody will have this sheet in front of them. Everybody will go through the test. As you move from phase to phase to phase to phase to phase, then we check on each one of these items. Why? That's the way we sort the thing out before it adds value and starts costing more money and before it gets to Kenya. All right. So where else have we got issues over here? Boxing. Now we haven't had a lot of problems. We've had problems with sometimes the wrong roll coming up inside the box. So we've
in the
done
very
that now.
early days, we've written that into
Yeah.
the program and sorted. I think the scratch panel is probably where 90% of the issues are right now.
Okay.
Is of scratch panel, and we've got some ideas how to solve it in a production way.
Yeah. So you can do one or two things. You can either make a small one for everyone's desk in front of them, or you can just put a big one on the wall. We
We'll
just
probably put a product sheet on by every station,
for every station.
and then a checklist will be separate.
And I'm going to do this process. I'm going to map out the process as well, so that if anybody does have any questions, you know exactly how the process flows.
Yeah.
And how are we gonna record each person's roll?
They will be a problem. You guys can work out a number, a way of giving them a unique number,
I
or
was
writing their name.
I was actually thinking of like the rewinders do. We print their names on little 4514, and it goes inside the core.
Cool.
I've written it down here. There's a couple of things that I want to just bring up. So inside the core, what we do with our labels
The
is
core is going with
the core is going with. It's on the inside.
Oh, I see.
So we print this thin
Oh.
little label, and then his name, her name, their names all get printed on the little stickers, and it just gets pasted on the inside, just so that there's accountability for the roles.
Or you can put initials on if you don't want
Initials,
Or
or
you could put it onto the check sheet. There's
Okay.
5 checks that's on it, and
you
this
can
is-
have station
and
1,
this-
station 2.
I will rack my brain of how we used to do it.
and just
And
okay from the
Yeah.
guys here.
yeah, we had actually thought of even issuing a barcode to each printer, so that when they start the print, you don't just scan the start of the roll, you actually scan the print operator, and that also gets stored. So on the database, it's
Says
whoever,
who did that
and then
roll,
we'll
yeah.
just
Yeah.
we can do that as well.
Yeah.
That's
I
also a
put my
good
mind
idea,
to it. I try to. You want to automate as much as you can, but not everything is automatable.
Yeah.
You know, it's not practical.
Or even if you don't put it on an individual, put it on a station, because we've got the stations up there, and you know who was running which station.
Yeah, so what we can do is on any given day, let's say we've got 4 print stations for variable data, and we've got 4 print stations for paneling. So what we could do tomorrow or today, these are the 4 people allocated to print stations 1, 2, 3, 4,
Correct, yeah.
and 5, 6, 7, 8. And if it's and then tomorrow we just edit every day. So that's
Yeah.
at the start of each day we just allocate. So you only scan one. So you just scan the print station, and then because the person's been allocated, we'll know
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
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 So
Okay.
No, there's
that's how we kept
many
going.
ways to skin a cat. So
Yeah. All right. So the key is this. Okay, so let's just talk about you running through the job and you start having problems with this thing. Okay, so let me tell you what happened with the voucher business. We would send 65 million pins to Vodacom Mozambique. And the guy would phone up if there were 2 pins that were bad. 2 cards were bad.
Yeah, sure.
That's how strict they were. Okay? But the key is this, is that when we come back into the process, we say this, okay, we've hit this problem. Yeah, we've hit this problem. How do we sort the problem out? Then we look at the card, we know who did the card, we know when it was done, we know what machines printed it, we know what person was involved in it. What we do in that process over there is I come back with a big cricket bat and smack the guy over the head. You come back to them and say, no one knows your job better than you. What happened here and how do we fix it? If you then say, it wasn't me, we can't fix it. You understand that? So I had guys coming in, I had one lady come to me and we had like done all these processes and we just kept checks and everything. So I could sit down with her and I say, you were part of the team, this is where it broke down at that particular point over there and you were in that team, here's all the logs, here's all the scans, here's your plan. This is not about firing you or giving you a written warning or anything like that. It's trying to sort out the problem. That's what it's about. If you have this defensive mode, so she had this idea that it just wasn't her. She had that idea right out through the door when she lost her job because we repeated the same problem once again, then we repeated the same problem again, and each time I went and sat down and said, here's the problem, how do we sort it out? She was in denial over this thing. And instead of being, she is the expert at the job, all she had to do is say to me, I said to her, this is not about killing you, it's not about firing you, it's not about finding you, it's not about, I want to know how to fix the problem.
Yes.
Why? Because the client's unhappy, the client's threatening to withdraw the work. If that didn't get sorted, 20 people would have lost their jobs because that client would have withdrew the work. So that's the net effect of keeping quiet. Okay, don't keep quiet. All right, it's a good worker that says, I've made a mistake, can I sort it out quickly? I really am sorry. Okay.
Moenie stil bly nie.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't keep quiet about stuff because you know what happens. We will find it in Kenya. Then it starts getting
And
really
then it's
expensive.
too late.
Yeah, guys, it's very easy. If you do all your checks and you follow the procedure and you double check, then these issues won't come up.
You
I'm
don't
not gonna
understand, stop the
say
machine.
op die vakantietye.
So,
Ons doen ook altyd as ons vir skoolvakantietye weer, dan doen ons dan van die boere wysers of die wat mense wysers op. Dan weer moet jy goed verduidelik my almekaar na mekaar.
Ja.
En ek het reg kry.
yeah.
Okay. And so where you see, as you work the process, you'll begin to see where problems start to come up because maybe something else crops up, Suddenly the scan doesn't work anymore. These things, so then you can just build another procedure into your check sheet over here. What do we have to do to make sure that that doesn't happen again? So, we don't want to come to, but these things don't take long to do. I watched our guys. We had, how many lines we used to run there?
16 at one stage.
16
before we
lines.
got the big machine.
16 lines, 16 groups of people working on those things, and that thing worked seamlessly, and it happened quickly, and we sorted out the problem quickly, we got to the bottom of it. And so our error rate fell to almost zero. It was extraordinary what that factory just up the road was producing, and the quality of it producing. The key to it is when you arrive at work and you sit down, you need to go into that mindset. There is no day where you have a day off, where you can think you can do it the old way, or you think you can cut corners. If you think like that, that's where the hole starts to happen, and then the hole gets bigger and bigger and bigger. In health and safety, there's this great thing they teach you. When a person walks down the inside the factory and he slips on some water, okay, it was an accident. But when someone else walks down the road and slips on some more water, then you've got to ask yourself, where does the water come from and who's spilling the water over here so we don't get injured people? Now suddenly, the third person comes along and they bash their head on the side of the thing and now they can't work anymore because their head's being knocked off or something like that, That's what happens with health. It's the same in production. If you leave it, it gets worse. It never gets better. It never goes away. Okay? It's called, you have to deal with it. Right. So world-class manufacturing, what it does is just sets the standard so that you guys can measure by it. So there's no doubt about what's there. It says that you guys, every single person in the production team is important. Every single person gives input. Every person uses their head and watches with their eyes. Everybody is responsible in that process, and together we produce a great product. All right. I think that's about as far as we need to go today. I think we have enough time over here. Is there anything else you want to ask questions on?
Is daar enige iets wat jy wil weet?
Ek het baie vrae.
No vraag.
Nou vra.
Vraag wel eens aan, you can translate. Vraag maar.
Ik verstaan nog die hele bezigheid reageren.
Okay.
Oh.
Verstadig.
Dis fyn. Ek gaan dit mooi uitsit op 'n blaai wat ek daarbo gaan plak. En dan wanneer die job weer inkom, sal ek weer saam met dit deurgaan in Engels en Afrikaans dat jy die hele cycle verstaan. Okay, so ja, hy het nou baie vinnig gepraat, maar ek gaan dit alles op papier sit en dan sal ek weer deur dit gaan en Brent is daar as jy vashou. So ons sal weer deur dit gaan as ons moet. Okay, kom vra maar net.
Dankie.
Ken ek af. Any other suggestion? Any other areas where you think you can make a difference and improve?
My friend, he will help me.
Yeah, what is gonna be? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got some. We've learnt a lot, gathered a lot of information. I think we've run 5 jobs since February.
Yeah.
I think, and there's one coming up shortly. So we've learnt a lot, and we know, and we have some solution which we'll discuss now. So yeah, So and we'll put these things in place, and it's to improve all the time. We don't have the resources to have somebody write us a big fancy program at this
We don't
stage.
need anything like that.
Like that.
Yeah.
So put it on pieces of paper and
Don't
phone it.
So-
overcomplicate the
Yeah,
process.
so we've got what we've got, we've improved it a lot, and we can improve it even more. So the whole thing is about elimination, you know. For me personally, if we can sort out the scratch panel, we've sorted out
That's 90% of the problem.
95% of the problem. But that doesn't mean to say if we can sort that out that the rest isn't
Then
important.
the checks
Yeah,
will fall
exactly.
away.
But so the
If you just have a consistent process, the diligence about consistent process.
Yeah.
You know, when you drive a motor car and you get a flat tire, you stop the car, pull it to the side of the road, and you change the tire. When you're flying an airplane at 10,000 meters and you have a flat tire, or the plane stops flying, you fall to the ground and there's bodies everywhere. Okay, so in the aircraft industry, they just work with systems. They just work the diligent thing. They just do the same thing every time. They just check, they check, they check, they check. They don't ever stop checking. They just keep checking, and someone checks their work that someone else does. And that's what you guys can cover for each other. You get into that mindset. It just becomes part of the way you work, and then you'll see that what comes out at the end of it, you don't have problems with it. Okay? So the nice thing is, I'm working in Bahrain, I'm working in South Africa, I'm working in Kenya. The guy that started with our Kenyan education department is now talking to Zambia. They want to do the same thing in Zambia, so we could find ourselves doing tags for Zambia as well for their education. So the stuff is growing very nicely. Okay, so I do appreciate the time. Wade, thank you so much also the supervisors at CAM. We do appreciate it. If you need anything from us, we're here. We'll back you to the hilt and we'll make sure that things happen.
Yeah.
Mark, they do need, you remember those reports we used to write for deviations for the vouchers?